Hmm. Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Hello, everyone.
Yes,
Professor Mark is come back, so we can discuss the question for these two lecture.
Yes. Yes. So you can hear me, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Good. Wow. Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'm very, very excited to actually see two students anyway. And so I assume there's about 6 students that are here or thereabouts. And so what I tried to do was to give you a little bit more information concerning social interest, and specifically some of the aspects or ideas that are very much a part of what social interest is. So that's not the slide I need. Can you find the first slide, please? Yeah, there we go. Okay, good. Okay. So let's go to the second slide. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about social interest 2 weeks ago, and I encouraged you or asked you, I didn't assign you, but I asked you to think about what's the nature of social interest. So you've had a couple weeks to think about what social interest is. So what are your thoughts? So the first question is, in everyday life, do you often see social interest at work? And if so, give specific examples. Anybody?
I want to share my experience. I want to share my experience.
Thank you. Please.
I think I really seldom to see the social interest at work. For the work, I have the part-time work at hospital, and I am the clinic nurse. But
Okay.
I think I'm not really love this job. The uh, the only I can get maybe is just the money, and I seldom can get a happy at the environment.
Hmm.
So I think I have to do more thing besides work and the study. So I got I learned other thing. I learned new interest in this year, and I think that is more. I can get more happy and some sense of achievement more than the work and the study.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very good point, is that if we just work and if we just study, where is the social interest in that? However, now uh, pay very close attention to this. Even in work, even in work that's difficult, or even in a work environment, I think we can always demonstrate and look for social interest. Let's go back to that previous slide, please. Yes, thank you. Um, so, as an example, when I was working not too long ago in a situation in which people really they did their work and they did their work professionally, but there wasn't any enthusiasm. There wasn't any
Okay, technology problem. Wait for a while. Welcome back. We didn't hear the voice. Professor Mark, you didn't
I
open the
think
mic.
didn't on mute.
Okay. Can you hear my voice now? Okay, so I guess when I rejoin, it mutes me and I have to unmute. I don't know why I had to rejoin, but hopefully that will be the only time. So as I was saying, even in difficult work environments, where people just come to work, they do their job, and they leave, we can contribute to social interest, even in those environments. And how do we do that? I think the first thing that we have to be able to do is get outside of ourselves and to be willing to appreciate and be part of a larger purpose. So most work environments have very distinct values and organizational goals. And if we can all contribute to that, then we're going to increase the opportunity for social interest. So social interest is not just about being social. Remember, it's about contribution. We have to be able to contribute, and we have to be able to cooperate. So the more that we contribute and the more that we can cooperate, I think there's a pretty good chance that we will experience social interest. Somebody else like to give an example of what they've seen in terms of social interest in the last couple of weeks? Let's have one more person share, and then we'll move to the next question.
I can share something. In last few days, I have seen. I check social media and I see the post of one of my Nepali friend who is working in India, and she's volunteering with Chuchi actually. And when I messaged her, she said that it is very hot there. The weather is very hot, and it is the living there is not so easy. It is difficult to live there because it is also a rural area. So that even if she she faced difficulties, she says that she is kind of enjoying the environment, and I think it is because of her interest to give back to society. And she writes that she was interested in this kind of work from her childhood, and now it's like dream come true. But in the background, of course, she is not very comfortable to be in that place.
Yeah. So often we are told from our society that if you work hard, get good grades, go to a good university, you'll get a good job and you'll have a happy life. And I don't disagree with working hard, going to a good university, getting a good job. I think that's all good goals. But social interest requires more than just our own viewpoint and our own comfort. It's about participating. It's about being part of a larger whole. And so as we're thinking about social interest and thinking about our own social interest, how can we do that better? How can we do more of that? And then in the environments that we work in, how can we contribute to the social interest of that environment? So these are things that I want you to be thinking about. The last question here on this particular slide is, what are impediments to social interest? Now, this is a kind of easy question to answer, but what are some impediments, some obstacles, some things that get in the way of being able to demonstrate or experience social interest? Anybody?
I'm Feng Yi. I'm trying for this. Yeah,
Thank you.
think nowadays everybody is busy for their job or their life, so they kind of be more concerned about themselves. So it's not concerned about others, even their
Yeah.
neighbors, or
Yes.
even they are not having spending time with their families members as
Yes.
well. Yes,
Yes.
that is my thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So we this is not easy for us to experience and to demonstrate social interest, because it's, in a way, it's against what culture says. Culture almost encourages us to be self-centered. So a major impediment to social interest is self-interest. They aren't opposite. We can still be interested in self and show social interest. So it's not one or the other. However, when we are all about achievement ourselves, making it, being happy ourselves, then there is very low social interest. And social interest, as we talked about last week, and again mentioned today, it's a predictor of mental health, but I would also say physical health. Many chronic illnesses would probably be less if there was more social interest. So illness, mental health, these are tied to our ability to understand and participate in social interest. So this is kind of a big deal. It opens up a different way of being in the world and viewing the world. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's all about others. You have to contribute to others. You have to be helping others all the time. I'm not saying that. I'm saying don't just be self-interested. Be also socially interested by showing, contributing, and collaborating with others and participating. I know as a professor, when I assign group projects in classes, many of the students don't like to do group projects. They would rather do it themselves. However, there's a lot of energy and inspiration that comes from the group. And I think most of you understand that. Most of the big companies, Google, Microsoft, they're looking for people who can contribute to the group, not just achieve individually. So it's not an either or. And this is a very critical concept for Adlerian psychology. But I think also on a bigger concept, that the more social interest that we can contribute, the more likely that we're going to be happy, successful, and be able to then share our happiness and success with others besides our family. Our family's fine too. So we can have self-interest, we can have family interest, but we also need social interest in order to be more fully functioning as human beings. And so whatever your role is, be thinking about, and this will be, you'll have a chance to respond to this idea later in the term, but what are some ways that you yourself can contribute and encourage others around you to be socially interested? And so part of that question is on the next slide. Let's go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So when we're talking about empathy, as you heard me speak a few minutes ago in the video, empathy is the ability to be able to be with another person, to understand what their feelings might be, to be able to experience to a certain degree what they're experiencing. So empathy is another word that you sometimes hear used, but I would like us to think about empathy more specifically. So how do you know when somebody's being empathic toward you? How do you know that? And so the question here is, what are ways that you feel comfortable being empathic? As an example, for me, and I know it's going to be different for each individual, but for me, when I take time and I listen to another person and I really hear what that person is saying, when I make eye contact with that person and we make eye contact together, then we're connected. We have a way of being able to get outside. Sometimes we get all caught up in ourselves, but when we start to expand out and be more, have more ability to understand and be with another person, that's when we're starting to show empathy. So what are some ways that you, either in your culture that you grew up in or the culture you're in currently, what are some ways that you would feel comfortable showing or being empathic? Anybody? What are some ways that you would feel comfortable being empathic?
I want to try about it.
Yeah.
I want to try about it. I think the first I have to combine the feeling is about I'm really want to impact to he or she, or it's just the mood, so I have the feeling about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the comfortable way I think is I have to really know about the person, so I can know how or why they they have the thinking about it. For
Yeah.
example, I can really know why my friend have the bad mood about she have she have the she have something bad happen on should work, but I'm really hard to empathic about the patient they complain about the doctor. I'm not sure, maybe the doctor or the medicine.
Mm.
So I think the comfortable way about me is I have to really know about this person, so I can know how or why they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I think when we connect with another human being, I'm going to try to give you an example. In where we live, it can be pretty cold in the wintertime. And my wife and I were driving, and we saw a young man, probably in his 20s or maybe 25, 30. He was riding a bicycle. He had no hat, no gloves on his hands, and it was really cold. It was terribly cold. And as I'm driving up the hill and I pass him, he's coming down the other side of the road. I make eye contact with him. And I told my wife, I said, I can't let him be that way. He needs my gloves. So I turned the car around and I caught up with him and I gave him my gloves. Now, if I hadn't made eye contact with him, I wouldn't have done that. I may have felt bad for him. I may have wished that he wasn't in that circumstance. But by making eye contact, I decided to do something. And my wife asked me, she said, are those gloves sentimental to you? And they were. They were gloves I used after my wife had passed away when I moved to a very cold place. And I used them to bicycle. And they did have sentimental value. But that didn't compare to his need. So I was able to see what his need was and to help him. I didn't solve his problem. I don't know why he doesn't have a hat or gloves. I don't know why he was riding a bicycle in such terrible weather. I didn't solve anything for him, but I helped him by my contribution. And so being empathic gets us outside of ourselves and more willing to be able to participate with others. So think about ways that you feel comfortable showing empathy, being empathic. I know
Okay,
culturally, yes,
I
somebody
want
was speaking.
to
Yeah.
change my answer. And I think if that is the like the teacher experience, I think the way I feel comfortable is when I do something and I don't feel sorry about my decision. That is the way I feel comfortable.
Okay. Yeah. So, this is, so empathy is a key component to being able to form a counseling relationship with an individual. If I'm a counselor, which I am, and I'm working with a client, if I don't feel empathic towards them, they will know that. So empathy is something that we feel from others as well. There's a song, I may use the lyrics later in the semester, but there's a song, and one of the lyrics says, when you get to the top of the ladder, in other words, when you reach your goals, turn around and help the next person. So social interest and empathy are closely related. I think it is somewhat difficult to show social interest without showing empathy. So empathy is kind of a base towards social interest. And let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the final part of the video was talking about critical thinking. Now, I don't know about your culture, but I know in the United States, we talk about critical thinking all the time. But I don't think we know what critical thinking is when we talk about critical thinking all the time. I said in my lecture that my daughter, who's a high school teacher, she says she always is saying, I want my students to be able to critically think. I want my students to critically think, da 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 da. But I don't know that she fully understands what critical thinking is. So what I tried to do is give you a definition of critical thinking. I'll mention this right now. There's a website that's kind of popular amongst professors and academics called criticalthinking.org. Criticalthinking.org. I don't necessarily think that you need to go to that website, but the point being is if you did go to criticalthinking.org, you would see a lot of what I was talking about in my brief lecture as to what critical thinking is. So, as I said in my lecture, I think many of the problems that Taiwan faces, that the United States faces, that the world faces, is in part lack of critical thinking, meaning that we decide on an issue, an important issue. Like in the United States, there are many important issues that are being debated currently. For example, do we want to consider supporting Ukraine? Most Americans, probably 85% of Americans, would say, yes, we need to continue to support Ukraine. However, there's a majority, maybe 15%, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but there is a percent that feels that we're spending way too much money on Ukraine. And why? What's the reason for that? So these two different viewpoints, when looked at critically, will come to conclusions that are probably not too different from each other. For example, the people who don't want to support Ukraine is because they're worried about the money being wasted, that this money could be used for United States infrastructure or to help build up and to support people who don't have many resources. So I'm not saying that there's a right or a wrong answer. What I'm saying is that if we critically think, then most likely the conclusions that we come to will be conclusions that we can feel comfortable with. If we just act from our bias, or for example, sometimes I will hear a person say, the reason I believe that is because that's how my family believes. Or I believe that because I've always believed that. And there's no real logic or analysis or reason to support what they believe, except that that's what they've always felt. That's not critical thinking. And I think when we do that sort of thinking, that we miss out on opportunities to have a more richer viewpoint. So what are some common impediments to critical thinking? Well, the first impediment to critical thinking is it's difficult. If you look at that definition that I gave you in the lecture, each one of those components, you can see that it takes a lot of work to critically think. You have to be able to analyze and to get beyond your bias, and then be willing to modify your viewpoint if you get new information. So there are many impediments to critical thinking. So what I want you to be thinking about is how can you be a more critical thinker? What are some ways that you can analyze a difficult problem from a more critical viewpoint? I think we'll skip to that last bullet here, and I'd like to get your input. What is the relationship of critical thinking to social interest? What is the relationship of critical thinking to social interest? Anybody want to try that? I know it's a little bit of a difficult question, but give it a shot. What's the relationship between critical thinking and social interest? Well, maybe we should give that one some more thought. I'm going to revisit that question a little bit later in the semester. So you'll see this question again. So be thinking about it. Be thinking about it. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So course assignments. I'm sure everybody is a little vague on what my expectations are or what I require. So for my portion of the course, there'll be 2 assignments and then there'll be a final exam. So the first assignment is due in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today. It'll be due on the 20th of October. There's 2 parts to the assignment. Part 1 is in 2 to 3 paragraphs, answer the question, what does it mean to live a life that matters? So the question is, what does it mean to live a life that matters? Can I get the slide back, please? Great, thank you. So the first part is 2 to 3 paragraphs that answer the question, what does it mean to live a life that matters? Now, this is very abstract. It's your feelings and ideas. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. But spend 2 to 3 paragraphs answering the question, what does it mean to live a life that matters? Now, part 2 of this assignment that's due on 10/20 is please write 3 short-term goals. A short-term goal is a goal that you should be able to complete in 1 year or less that support living a life that matters. So 3 short-term goals. So the second part of this exercise is very concrete. First part, very abstract. What does it mean to live a life that matters? Part 2 is much more concrete. It's much more focused. So what are 3 short-term goals that help support living a life that matters? And then 3 medium-term goals, goals that you should be able to complete in 5 years or less that support living a life that matters. And then the final part of this exercise or this assignment is to write 3 long-term goals, goals that you hope to be able to accomplish in a lifetime that support living a life that matters. So that's your assignment. That's due on 2 weeks from today. And the way that you'll submit that assignment is through the instructions that your instructor will give you. I don't know how that works exactly, but that's how you'll submit it on 10/20. So there's only 2 assignments from me and a final exam. So this is the first assignment, and it's due in 2 weeks. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the second assignment is called a values sort. This will not be due until December 22nd. And specific instructions for this assignment will be distributed early next month on 11/3. But I just want to give you an idea that this is coming. It won't take you a long time to do the value sort, probably about maybe 3 to 4 hours. You'll find that the exercise is rather fun. It's interesting. It makes you think a little bit about your values. Don't worry about this assignment too much at this point. When I go over the specific instructions on 11/3, that still gives you plenty of time to find that 3 or 4 hours to do the assignment. But I'm just letting you know that this assignment will be coming up next month. I will sign it, and it'll be due on the 22nd of December. And then there will be a final exam. And I'm not sure what the questions will be on the final exam yet. I will develop those as the term progresses. But I'll give you about 1 month before the end of the term to answer the 4 questions. And to be honest, one of the questions could be the question I just finished with in terms of critical thinking. What's the relationship of critical thinking to social interest? That could be a question. I don't know. I think I think I will change. That probably won't be the question, but it may be something like that. And so you'll have 4 of these questions, and these 4 questions will span what I've covered in the term, and you'll have a month to prepare this before you have to turn it in. So I hope that relieves a little bit of your anxiety about what it is that I'm expecting. So 2 assignments and a final exam. The next assignment will be due on the 20th of this month, and that's living a life that matters with your goals, your 3 short-term goals, medium-term goals, and your long-term goals. Okay, I think I've used up the allotted time. I used a little bit more than I expected for this. But I hope that you kind of see the connection between the 3: social interest, empathy, and what did I just say? Critical thinking. Okay, there we go. I just turned 70, and my turning 70 is I think turned a switch in my brain where words don't come as easy to me as they did when I was 69. I don't know why, but in a day's time, I seem to have more difficulty remembering words. So at any rate, I hope you got something out of today's discussion and today's lecture, and I hope you feel comfortable about what you need to do to be successful in my portion of the course. Okay? Are there any questions that you have for me? We've got a couple more minutes. Any questions you have for me?
Professor Mark, because
Yes.
due to the first assignment, we thought that we need to submit it by today lesson. So actually already done and I already submitted. So I'm not sure whether I'm doing it correct. And because the part that the first is need to write up 2 to 3 paragraph. But now I reviewed that my so-called the first assignment, I only write up in 1 or 2 paragraph. So I'm not sure whether am I doing the correct thing that you are requested. Then the second question is because when I try to do the first and the 2 questions is about the less than a year goal and a medium term goals. So to me, it's kind of related things. So because I might doing something that I think that I can do it within a year, but apparently I also want to continue doing it for the following 3 to 5 years.
The guidelines for the paper are just general. I'm not going to be making sure that you have 2 to 3 paragraphs. I'm not going to be making sure that the question, that's not it.
That
it's
is
a way
a
of
reference.
thinking.
Yeah,
it's just a way of forming the thought. And I apologize if I may have said something last time that we had to indicate that you needed to do that by today. But you can rethink it and you can resubmit it if you would like.
Okay.
You can just talk to your instructor and see how to go about doing that. But I'm more interested in that you do the exercise, that you do the assignment, not so much what you come up with, because this is obviously a thinking exercise for you. How often do we get to think about what living a life that matters means to us? We don't get to do that too often because we're busy. We're busy trying to be successful, trying to get everything done, et cetera, et cetera. But these big questions, like what does it mean to live a life that matters, these are important. And if we get a chance to answer those questions, I think then we will understand a little bit more about ourselves and then how we can contribute and cooperate in life. So thank you for the question. I hope that answers it for you.
Yes, definitely answer for me. But just to get some some feedback to Professor Mark, that actually is really helpful for me for my current job right now, because critical thinkings between the so-called leaders to do some discussion and how the way that after the discussion can be come up something that is beneficial to others. So to me, that is some kind of link to the social interest, like the benefits of the teachers as well. So actually between my teams, so because of this assignment, I also kind of share with my colleagues. I'm so grateful and happy that they also also like very interested about what I'm learning right now. So this is also very helpful that between my teammates, we can do something within our work and how to lead the group better. Yes, that
Well,
is
good.
my feedback. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you very much for that input. So thank you very much for another opportunity to help you understand some more about social interest. We'll be shifting gears a little bit for next time, and I think you'll enjoy the lecture I guess that's 2 weeks from now. It's the 20th, so yes, 2 weeks from now. So I look forward to us getting together again. Well, thank you very much, and good night to you, and good morning to me. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.